Ray.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this presentation of the Trust and Real Estate Services Act for Realtors. And this morning, I'm going to walk you through all those things that you need to know about the Trust and Real Estate Services Act so that you can, in fact, comply with these new regulations once TRESA comes into effect. My name is Ray Ferris, and I'm a realtor like each and every one of you. I've been a realtor for 27 years. I own my own small boutique brokerage on the North Shore of Lake Erie. So if you're wondering what in the world could a practicing broker of record possibly know about real estate law, let me share with you that for the last 3 years, since it was created, since the task force was struck by OREA, I've been the chairperson of the Trust and Real Estate Services Act Regulations Task Force. And I mention that to let you know the following. I've been in numerous meetings with the government and also with the Real Estate Council of Ontario about this new legislation. So I promise you that the information that we're going to share with you today is in fact the correct information. I see a lot of stuff on social media about TRESA that's actually not correct. So I promise you, because we've been in the trenches from day one, because I've been eating, breathing, and sleeping this stuff for the last 3 years, we're giving you the right information. So let's get started. And as you guys are probably aware, the implementation date for TRESA is in fact December 1. This is the drop dead date. This date will not change. Some of you might know that TRESA was actually scheduled to come into effect on April 1 of this year, but the government delayed the implementation date because OREA asked the government if they would in fact consider allowing designated representation to be part of phase 2. And they agreed, hence the delay. But there will be no more delays. December 1 is the date. There's a website you guys can see at the bottom of your screen right now. This is a very important website for you guys. It's orea.com/TRESA. And I'm going to refer to that a couple times throughout the presentation, but I'm going to share with you at the conclusion of the presentation what you will find at orea.com/TRESA. So make note of that. So here's how we're going to do this morning. I'm going to walk you through the presentation. And if you have any questions whatsoever throughout the presentation, simply type them into the chat. We can't pause the presentation and take questions on the fly because we'll never get done. Aaron's going to moderate the chat for me at the conclusion of today's presentation, where we're going to answer your questions. And if you have questions beyond today, I'm going to show you how we can answer those questions for you. Now, I'm not a lawyer, as I mentioned. I'm a real estate broker, so none of the information that I share with you should be considered as legal advice. But more importantly than that, I'm going to use a lot of real estate examples in today's presentation to paint a picture for you how these regulations will in fact work in practice. And maybe sometimes I'll use an example where your brokerage policy and procedures are different than the examples I use. And if that's the case, obviously, you need to adhere to the policies of your own brokerage, not the examples that I provide. The Trust and Real Estate Services Act is a significant overhaul of our current legislation, which we know is the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act. These are not minor amendments to REBA. Because this was such a heavy lift, the government broke it down into bite-sized pieces. They broke it down into 3 phases. Phase 1 has already been in effect for 2 or 3 years. And when I talk about that really briefly, it should be a reminder to most of you. We're going to spend the most of our time together talking about what you need to know come December 1 for when phase 2 comes into effect. And then I just want to let you know, it doesn't end there. Sometime in 2024, we expect the government to talk to us about more things that will be changed in real estate legislation. For example, they want to talk to us about cooling off periods, ending the auctioneer exemption that currently exists within REBA, maybe allowing us as realtors to call ourselves specialists. And you'll be invited to partake in these conversations, just like you were invited to partake in phases 1 and 2, and maybe some of you did. OREA, RICO, and your real estate board invited you to take part in those conversations. So watch for emails from those organizations as we enter the new year. And then, like I mentioned already, we're going to end with a Q&A section. So let's do a refresher of what's already in effect as part of TRESA's Phase 1. For 10 long years, the Ontario Real Estate Association lobbied the government to allow Ontario realtors to be able to form personal real estate corporations. Lawyers were allowed to, accountants were allowed to. So as a matter of fairness, we said, why can't Ontario realtors personally incorporate? And now we have the ability to do so. So why would you ever consider forming a personal real estate corporation? Well, it allows you to access the business advantages of incorporation. And with that comes significant tax and income planning benefits. Since PRECs have been permitted in Ontario, over 10,000 Ontario realtors have in fact formed a personal real estate corporation. If you want more information about personal real estate corporations, whether or not they're right for you, and if so, how to set one up, just go to the OREA website, OREA.com, and there's a lot of information in there to help you answer those particular questions. The other thing that came about as part of phase 1 of TRESA is new descriptors for realtors. So you guys, if you've been in the business longer than 3 or 4 years, you'll recall that REBA used to say we had to call ourselves, if we were registered as a salesperson under the Act, real estate salespeople or real estate sales representatives. But at OREA, we said to the government, consumers really don't very often refer to us as salespeople. More often than not, they call us real estate agents and realtors. So because that's how consumers already refer to us as, we said to the government, why can't we call ourselves that? And they agreed. They amended REBA to allow us to be able to call ourselves real estate agents and realtors. And I've noticed that most of us are now, in fact, calling ourselves realtors. And that was all because of phase 1 changes.